Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the second video. And in the last video, we created this program. I showed you guys how to get Visual Studio Code set up. In Python, in order to assign values, you're going to use things called variables. And variables can be any name that you want them to be. So, my variable. We're just going to say my variable equals, and we're going to say this is a string. So we saw this in the last video, but the reason why strings are important is because anytime you read a file, it could be an HTML file, it could be data like that you're grabbing from a database, it's going to be in string format. And you have to know that, okay, how do I take two strings and add them together and stuff like that. There's certain rules that you have to follow when it comes to dealing with strings. So we could say my variable, and we'll say another one, my second variable equals, this is some more stuff. Now, here's two simple strings. And what do I do if I want to actually combine these two together? So we're going to actually do this now. We're going to say my combined variable equals my variable. And you can see that the editor actually tells you little options that you have. So it says my, oh, you mean my variable, right? Or one of these other ones, but we'll click on my variable plus, and this is just the actual plus keyword, just like addition, and we say my second variable. And if you want, you can just press the enter button and it should finish typing for you. Alright, so now if we want to say I want to print this value to the console, which is down here in our debug console, we just use the print keyword in Python. So we'll say my combined variable. Press Control S to save your file. And one of the things you'll notice up here, when the file is unsaved, this little circle appears over there. If I hover over it, the X shows up, but don't hit the X because it'll close out your script without saving it. But you can see this little circle means you have unsaved changes. So if I hold down Control and S, and now that circle goes away and it's saved. So if I run this program, the proper term for this in the computer programming geek world is string concatenation. So they call it concat, which is like short C-O-N-C-A-T, or concatenation. It's really short for concatenation, but it's concat. It just means combining this stuff together. So one of the concepts here that I want to get across with you guys is that these are variables and they're whatever name you want them to be. So we created this arbitrary name, but there's certain things that you can't do. Number one, you can't put numbers in front of your variable. It has to be a character. It could be an underscore if you wanted to, but you can't have numbers. You can see it instantly turns red and says, hey man, you can't do that. So don't do that. So now raw and uncut, I don't want you to have to worry about anything that I'm doing right here, but I want to show you the benefit of a string. So we're going to leave my variable here. We're going to change its content in just a second. But I want to show you why a string could be used as something that does a little bit more than you may think. And we're going to say, you know what, we're going to say my out file. In fact, you know what, we're going to say my HTML file equals open, and this is another Python keyword here, open, and then we tell it a path, and once again you don't have to know any of this stuff, so that's actually what I'm going to do here, Python for beginners, and then I'll just say my HTML file.html, and then I pass in this additional keyword which means write, and then we're going to say my HTML file.write my variable. Okay, and now instead of this, I'm actually going to put actual HTML in here, and we're going to say title, look at this, title, actually that needs to be inside of a head too. So this is just HTML, guys, so anytime you go to a web page you're going to see this type of HTML in there, although this is very kind of raw and uncut. I'm just putting in some stuff in here so we can actually see the example. And I want to put just a title in here, and we'll say hello world. Alright, so this is all a string, guys, and it's in HTML format, and we're telling it to write to a file and putting it in this directory right here. And this W means write a new file if it doesn't exist, because if the file existed, we can actually put different commands in there that say, I want you to append the file or add to what's already there. And the W actually will wipe it out every single time it writes a new file. But now look what we have here. We have in our Python for Beginners folder, we now have this my HTML file. So Python created this file. And then look at the file type. Because it's a .html file that Python wrote, you can see that it wants, my Chrome can open it because my Chrome is my default browser. So if I double click on this, and we'll say Chrome, and let me show this so you can see this is actually referencing right there, and we have hello world. So let's look at, and you can even see in the title up here at the top it says look at this, because in the same way that I actually wrote an HTML page, I could actually use Python to go to any website across the web, get their HTML source page, and then use Python to start looking for values inside of here. In fact, that's what Google's search engine did. It was originally written in Python, and it went from one site to the next, and then it evaluated its content. And it did it in a way that was more efficient than other browsers at the time. And now, you fast forward to today, and Google is making $21 billion a year in profit. And they did it all on the back of Python initially. And, and that's another thing too. So a lot of you guys are like, I'm older, I'm just getting into programming and all that stuff. And I'll tell you what, there's going to be fantastic programmers in this world. And I may not be one of them, but what matters though is that, do you have the drive to continue to succeed and try? When you start failing, do you maybe take a break for a moment and come back? Do you keep trying? Because you're going to have to keep trying in programming. Things are going to be difficult for you. But I don't think there's any sort of age limit or educational requirement or anything else that tells you whether or not you can solve a business problem. If you have a business mind and you know how to maybe gain a decent amount of knowledge in programming, you don't have to write the next Facebook in order to make decent money. You don't have to be an expert programmer creating some of these fantastic frameworks that are being developed by Facebook and Google and all those guys. You can be successful in this industry with just hard work, determination, and just having a decent understanding of how to solve business problems with programming code.